Jackie.
Sorry I
Nice to
couldn't
meet
stand
you.
officially. Nice to meet you, Miss Parker. And hello, Mr. Russell. How are you tonight?
Well, hello, how you doing?
Good evening.
I'm sorry, I had to stop and the way I eat.
No, I know we've been on the line all day, so I understand. So the headphones are gonna go this way, Miss Patricia.
And mine goes.
Is that all right? Is that too? Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
How does that feel?
apologize for being late.
And then I'm gonna give this to you, and you're gonna. All right, everybody. Good evening. How are you doing tonight, Mr. Russell?
I'm doing better. I had to stop and get this tea, and it has some health products that'll help my voice because it's really rough right now.
It's a little rough, right?
It's a little rough, but that's what they know it for being, though.
Exactly.
They love the roughness. Oh,
And I
and some
just
little
want-
healthy cookies.
Wow, they look healthy. This because I don't have a desire for them, so that's probably why they're healthy because I have a desire. I want that stuff. Anywho, Mr. Russell, I would like for you to do the honors and introduce and let our listeners know a little bit about the background of this woman you brought into the station with us this evening.
Well, this is a friend of mine, and her name is Pat Parker. She's diligently working with me to get my nonprofit all into order, Safe Zone for Kids at Risk. She's gonna design the program to go out and establish myself and in order to get things. Ms. Parker can explain that a little bit better.
Okay, but I just want you to do the intro. I appreciate
Her name
that.
is Miss Pat Parker.
Hello, Miss Parker. How are you? But because Ricky called me later this evening and he goes, Jackie, you know, I've got a phenomenal person I want to bring with me into the studio tonight, and so I appreciate your time tonight with us, Miss Parker. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for coming. How are you?
I'm well. I'm surprised to be on the mic tonight, but
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you just said yeah and came on in and just took your shoes off and get your feet wet and jump in the water.
no problem. No
Would-
problem.
Yeah?
Mhm.
You okay with it?
I'm great. I'm great.
All right.
So my name is Pat Parker, and I have an organization called the Value Series, and there's a division of the Value Series that provides training and technical assistance in the arena of capacity building for nonprofit and faith-based organizations. I happen to hear Henry talk about his vision, Safe Zone for Kids,
Yes.
and fortunately, I am able to come with a bit of my own funding for special projects. And as I begin to hear him talk about his vision, I say to myself, I want to invest in that.
Yes.
And so what we're doing right now is beginning with the infrastructure, making sure that things are in place, so establishing the foundation so that he can continue to build on it. As you know, in this space, in this time, and in this place, the need for viable projects that can impact the lives of children are very important, because what we're really talking about is changing the course of destiny for their lives. And anytime anyone from the community is committed to doing that, then I'm committed to supporting them. And so Henry is passionate about that. I heard the passion. It's not so much that he was selling an idea. He was talking about the inspiration that was coming from his soul, and I heard that. And so,
Captivating.
yes.
Yes. And so, how long have you been doing nonprofit work, Ms. Parker?
Seems like forever, and it has been.
Yes.
Since about 2002.
Yes.
Actually, yeah. I was working in corporate America, making a lot of money, but there was a hole in my soul that I couldn't fill. And I remember praying, beginning to talk to God about that, and asking for purpose. Because I believed intuitively that if I could access purpose, then I would be fulfilled, or at least have the sense of fulfillment. And so I was in corporate America, and I was very successful at what I did. And some of my coworkers would come to me and ask me, well, how do you do what you do? And I began to talk to them about understanding my value. And I began to develop a performance enhancement program to share with them. .com bust came. I was working in the technology affiliated arena, all of us kind of went squirrely, and it was an opportunity. What could have been devastating was actually an opportunity to recreate myself and go into a different direction. Begin to talk to a friend about the Value Series. Her name is Susan Burton. You probably have heard of her.
Yes. We spoke of her last week, Miss April Atkins. I don't know if you're familiar, but she's a childhood friend of ours.
Okay.
And she's working for and with Miss Burton.
Susan Burton is a friend of mine, and I began to talk to her about the Value Series, and she opened the doors to her facility for me to engage with the women that she works with. And that was in 2001, and we haven't turned back. And she's always, over the years, talked to me about impact and how important it is to, at times, take the leap and engage.
How do you know when to take the leap, in your opinion, Ms. Parker?
I think it becomes obvious when you are pushed to the edge.
Okay.
There's no place else to go.
But over.
And as you turn around to see what's pushing you, you lose your balance and you fall over. And so taking the leap does not always look like the courageous jump. Sometimes it's falling into purpose.
What do you think about that?
She could almost be a poet if she's not.
Look at it.
Because, it's just amazing how God brings people together. Me and Miss Parker, we just met. We've seen each other in circles for quite some time, but she actually introduced herself about 3 weeks ago, and we started talking, and it was based on something I was sharing, and she overheard it, and it did what it did for her, where she approached me and we'd start talking, and we attempted to meet last week, but I was tied up in traffic again. It's like this traffic in California and in Los Angeles is wild.
Yes,
and it's just like, I almost wished I could pick the car up and fly it to get through it. But we got here. I got here. I told her I will be there. We met at the restaurant over there off of Market. It's a health food spot. Stuff I eat. Yeah.
Yes,
and so I had to get some tea.
Yeah.
But for her to come in here unprepared, when I say unprepared, she wasn't cued as to how you ask questions. You're detailed, and she had no clue. She had no idea, nor did I. But I'm getting information as you getting it, because we never got our opportunity to sit down, but we will today.
We're doing so right now.
I call this.
Though.
Yeah, I call this God, Mackie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When He bring people together,
Yes.
that they all have the same interests, or the same direction, or the same message, or the same purpose. And then look, we're all just sitting here right now. We're congregating about the kids.
Making a change and a difference and an impact. And I think, if I may, and I wasn't sure if I would touch this topic, Evan and I spoke earlier on, but Ms. Parker, when you speak about the children and you speak about change, the requirement, what do you see right now in the wake of the Nipsey Hussle murder?
Wow, actually Henry and I just touched on that prior to walking into the studio, trying to get perspective. And it's interesting because in the wake of this tragedy, how, and I'll have to use a biblical phrase, what the enemy has meant for harm, God can turn it to good. And so what we see is that out of this tragedy, that good is working from it, that there are opposing sides coming together in the power of agreement. And the thing about that is that it's unstoppable, the power of agreement. It is resident in marriage, in partnership, but also in community. It is so strong that the enemy fights against it. And when we have it, there's nothing that we cannot accomplish. One can put 1,000 to flight. Two can put 10,000 to flight. But can you imagine thousands coming together on one accord,
Yes.
in agreement to accomplish a thing? Who can stop it?
Right. It's one of those supernatural scenarios, if you will, Ms. Parker, or
Well, you know,
would you say like nature? Maybe I shouldn't use the word supernatural. I'm reminded of, and just bear with me. You saw the film Jurassic Park,
of course.
Part 1,
Mm-hmm.
right? When Jeff Goldblum's character says, life will always find a way.
Mm-hmm.
And your analogy that your scripture that you're preaching to me, this is the analogy that pops into my brain, that there's a force. And here we go again. Michael Jackson, the force has got a lot of power. And I've listened to Don't Stop Till You Get Enough at least a dozen thousand times, but now, as I'm older and wiser, when you talk about that force, and that power gets behind that force, and it's gone, I am in agreement with your perspective, because I believe once you, like you're saying, once we feel that power, that power fuels that source or that force, it's almost unstoppable. Exactly what you're saying, in my opinion. Talk to me.
Yes, you know, we cannot talk about the source, and I'm not afraid to use the term God.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
that's the one that I would prefer to use, but when God gets in it, you cannot talk about nature without talking about God, because God is the creator of all things, including nature. It is emanated from the Spirit of God, and so
Yes.
within the context of nature in which we exist, there is a spiritual context, and the spiritual context is that which dwells within us. And so we are never disconnected from the source or from the power, because we emanate from the power. Now, we can be asleep,
Okay.
which is why it's important to stay woke.
Okay.
We can be in the matrix with the choice of the red pill or the blue pill,
Right. Absolutely.
but we are never actually disconnected from nature. We cannot be.
Do we disconnect ourselves sometimes when you say asleep?
Well, I think, honestly, there has to be an awakening. And we can choose upon accepting the spark or not. I think the divine spark comes to each and every one of us in a season in our lives. And there is a moment when we can choose to acknowledge, to embrace, to adhere to submit to, or we can go on about our merry way. The red pill or the blue pill.
Which pill do you like?
Well, I like to help.
Okay.
I like to get involved. I don't want to be
You
sleep.
ain't taking no pills, all right. I don't
No,
blame you. That's
I don't want
a
to be
monstrous
sleep.
journey.
I want to get involved, and I want to repair some of the damage that's been done. It's overall. It's not just my lifetime or in the time I came up. It was starting to damage long before I came along, but then we contributed our own selves some type of way, and so we owe some type of responsibility to come back and do something, reach a hand back and grab. I always think about that story about starfish on the sea shore, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands, and the guy is trying to get them all back, the kid is trying to get them all back in there, and someone says, what does it matter? There's so many. And then he said, it matters to that one, and so that's how I look at this. It's, I appointed, well, I didn't appoint myself, God appointed me, and I just can't walk away from the responsibility. I can't turn my back. I don't need no approval from any pastors. I don't need any of that. I've been appointed by the Most High, and when that happens, it opened my eye. And at first I was in kind of like disbelief, and then it just dawned on me, things were just revealing themselves and unveiling themselves, and things were coming together that's undeniably profound. It's miracle, you know, and I had nothing to do with it other than being who I am and doing what I've done in my life. And I said, why me? But then why say why me? Just do what
Why
you've been
not
told to do, you know.
I go back to the word, and Emmett, this came up last week's discussion, submit. When we spoke submissive was actually the word of topic of discussion, but you used the word submit earlier. In your experiences, how easy is it for us to submit and go over the cliff as opposed to falling?
I'm not sure that it's always easy, you know, to be honest. And it's different for each of us individually. I come against the model of, I call it the John Wayne syndrome, where you see him on television running towards the battle with his six-shooter and his rifle in his hand, inclined, running into danger. But because it's on television, we already know that there will be a happy ending for John Wayne. He will live to fight another day. But when it's our turn, because we are in reality, the end has not been told in that scenario yet. I think that in our humanity, we hesitate. And so the question becomes, and it comes at different times or seasons in our lives, in our ability to trust the power that we call God, to trust source, or whatever you choose to call it. It's one thing to say you believe, it's another, do you trust?
Trust is paramount. We haven't talked about trust. Trust came up when we did a discussion about 2 weeks ago about the naked truth, and we talked about the word trust and how pivotal trust is in terms of, we talked about it from a fact. We looked at naked truth, and then there was so much, I don't know even what word you even want to use. There was so much gray. There was no longer black and white with the panelists that we had, Ms. Parker. It kind of morphed into the truth being either fact-based or perception.
I believe that belief is perception, but I think truth, as you described it, is pivotal, meaning that there's an action that's connected to it, that it has the power to turn one way or another.
Okay.
That's what made me reach out to Henry, actually, because I saw him begin to accept the truth that he received from God. Once he accepted that it was truth, and that it was true for him, first of all, he had to believe that it was God speaking to him. And then upon accepting that, he made a decision to take an action. And so I believe in the essential that it is action-based, trust.
Well, that's what I always say sometimes, Ms. Parker, you don't know if you can trust someone unless you actually choose to trust someone. You know what I'm saying?
It's a choice.
Right? Yeah.
I see you finna dig up in that Bible or
Well,
poetry.
because actually, the Spirit is leading me, and I always go where He leads me, and of course, you brought that out, Ms. Parker, but I'm going to read this. This is from the Poetish Rains collection of poetic art, and I did this about 6 years ago. But this is where my Spirit is telling me to go, because when we talk about submitting, that's the reason I was asking about submitting, submissive, letting go, letting God. When do we do that? How do we do that? Is it always tragedy sometimes or not? But this is what He gave me, okay? This is His words. I was just the vessel. It's called Prophecy 1. Our lives have already been bought and paid for by the blood covenant of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Any and all things we go through, whether we deem good or bad, is by our personal decision or perception. Jesus died on the cross so that each and every one who believed in Him, the Father and the Holy Spirit, shall have everlasting life. This means everything we go through has already been signed, sealed, and delivered into victory. The storm itself is a victory. There is a blessing in the storm. For the storm allows the ability for endurance and to exercise faith and commitment to the Word of God. For in times of trouble, God wants us to have abounding faith and to stand on His Word and the promises He has offered as everlasting gifts to His children. There has to be a need for a miracle in order for God to produce a miracle, so that we may marvel in His glory, His excellence, and His goodness, and His kindness, and His tender mercies. It is often stated that perception is reality, so therefore, no matter the circumstances, we are to be confident in knowing that all things work together for the good, that victory has been purchased through the blood covenant of Christ. The struggle can be the actual endurance of our flesh while we're going through the storm. The endurance of the punches and the bruises and the mental attacks while the fight is active. The ability to become and remain humble, submissive, and patient during the trials and tribulations are the manifestations of our fleshly bodies, proving that our faith is real and that our commitment to God's word has been convicted within. So in conclusion, please understand that every test and trial, hurt, heartache, and pain is truly designed for our growth in the Messiah. We must understand and receive this during any test or tribulation, knowing that your victory has already been won. Standing firm on His word during the good times and the bad times. Whether happy or sad, we must praise God. We must earnestly, we must fast accordingly, for the enemy is real and he wants to catch us slipping. So he can rob and steal everything you have and everything the Lord our God has in store for us. So stand on His word. Be faithful, be thankful, be grateful, be humble, believe, and remain steadfast, and most essentially love, because love is the greatest gift. Amen.
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 Beautiful.
Woke me up about 3:30 a.m. and the words just started.
Start rolling. Just start rolling.
And I'm like, what am I even doing? Before I was just doing poetry, right? Then this, and I'm like, whoa.
You'll tell short stories. It's, I know what you mean.
I know.
It just starts spilling
Right.
through. It just starts coming through. And it's like information, and you don't even, you gotta grab it and start.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. I just start
You
writing.
start right. You just have to
I
stop
start
whatever
writing.
you're doing. Whatever you're doing, you said just stop.
Yeah.
And my sister used to think, who you texting? I'm not texting, I'm writing. God talking to me. And then
Yeah.
people look at you like, okay.
Exactly.
She tripping. Jackie, no. But okay, I'm tripping. Whatever that is, and that's me. Remember you were saying about accepting and receiving that calling and just going. Please, Paul, go ahead, Doctor.
Yeah, I think I want to connect some of the thoughts that you presented in your piece there.
Yes, ma'am.
Thinking about the Christ before His manifestation into the earth realm, the Word. Before the beginning of time, He said, prepare me a body,
Yes, ma'am.
I'll go. But He did not come until the fullness of time, meaning that when He spoke that, it was long before He came. And He accepted His assignment a long time ago, prior to His entrance in bodily form into the earth realm. Isn't that like us? And so we are in process. We want to define submission as under the authority of, first of all, so that we're all on the same page as we begin to
Yeah.
continue the conversation, under the authority of. And so
Okay.
as we submit to our assignment, it does not mean that we become activated into assignment yet. See, we're always wanting to thank God for the blessing, but we don't always acknowledge or thank Him for the lesson. And I think that through our heartache, our experiences, the pain, the bruises, we are being prepared to launch into assignment. And therefore, we're never late. And so I'm thinking about Henry now. as he's beginning to launch
Mhm.
into this phase, into this assignment, to the natural eye, we would think, well, maybe it should have happened here or there. And even we ourselves think to ourselves, I should have done this
Mhm.
then.
Mhm.
And sometimes we query, am I late?
What causes that, in your opinion?
Not understanding that time is a construct that humans dwell in. God is not captured by time. God is the creator of time. And therefore, he sees the beginning from the end, and he already knows. It's not that he has told us what to do. We are free agents. He has given us agency. It's just that he knows the choices that we will make. He's never surprised. He's never caught off guard.
Mhm.
He never says, oh my goodness,
What is?
we didn't know
Yeah.
Pat was gonna do that. Now we got to change the plan.
Yeah.
Oh no, oh no, he already knew because he is not captured by time. He exists within, but also without. And so remedy and solution and my assignment is all together there. And we just keep walking. And so I think that we live in a construct, in particular America, where time is so important. You know, in the motherland, time was not as, we weren't conscious of time as we are in this particular arena.
Mhm.
And so we begin to think that we're running out of time, or we're not, we're too old, or it's not
Mhm.
going to happen. But
Mhm.
if it's God, then it shall.
Mhm. So be it.
If you've accepted the assignment, now we're in the season of preparation, and then we will be launched into it. And so we cannot look at a person and say, it's too late. They will never be.
Right, right.
It's never going to happen. No. We cannot say. We can only watch and see what we perceive as the miracles of God, but it's really not a miracle. It's already been ordained.
Are you gonna do some poetry for us tonight,
I'm gonna
Mr.
kill
Rose?
some poetry.
Please do.
I got the perfect voice for it right now.
No, but before we do a little bit of poetry, and I appreciate Ms. Parker, but Henry was gonna talk to us more about, did you wanna do more of that business ventures, or did we encompass?
Well, you know, it just goes and flows how it goes and flows, and it
Okay.
went in the direction it went in, and I'm glad it did. I'm glad I brought Miss Parker.
Me too.
Miss Parker. She opened my eyes to a lot more than what I was aware of, but
Mhm.
I see she's deeply spirited. She has a deep spiritual connection, and I'm glad to know that. You know, I brought her because I know that God, you know, I'll tell you this, I mentioned it last time, I believe, I do wanna get into some poetry. We were supposed to last time, but definitely, two women, 5 years separation, didn't know either one of them. Each one of them walked up to me and said, God told me to tell you something. He said, leave your old friends alone and embrace your new ones. And the first woman had said it, I didn't think much of it. I thought, okay, yeah, I'm in church, let me put some money in the basket. Not opposed to it, not judging it, I'm just saying. Then the second woman was an evangelist, and she said the same thing. Nowhere in the world we could have that same circle. Nowhere in the world I believed 100% the message the second time, because it was the same thing. And I said, wow, and then she said, you're a powerful soldier for God. And I don't know if you know that, but a lot of people do, and they fear you. And I thought, wow, you know, and then, you know, we went into this venture where I was just sitting minding my own business and what we spoke about at the last time we met. But yeah, I want to do some poetry. I love poetry.
Ms. Parker, have you had an opportunity to hear Ms. Henry recite?
No, I'm looking
You
forward
are
to
in
it.
for a massive treat. So I'm gonna let you do you, I'm just gonna turn the show on, remember we said we're gonna do it. I'm gonna let you do you, and then when you need me to come back in, I'm back in.
Okay, so what
And
I'll
Ms.
do,
Parker gonna enjoy.
Yeah.
And with me.
I'll do this piece called The Gladiator.
Okay.
And it's because The Gladiator is you need to know it's the image of strength, and it goes up against a lot, you know, and you have to have a connection with God. You gotta have some power with, you know, some God power to get through some of these wars and some of these hurdles and some of these things you're faced with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So this is called the Gladiator, and the name is Kambui, and it was given. It's Swahili, so you don't pick your name; they give it to you. And Kambui in Swahili means fearless.
Okay, fearless.
I am the Gladiator, Kambui. I am a weapon composed of bone and muscle wrapped in black flesh. The discipline of a soldier, but I've been trained by the best. There'll be no sympathizing on this battlefield, no hesitation with my attack. If we end up in the same arena, death to the end will duel, striving for life so I can remain in this fight. Every day I peer out my cage, thinking of the war I'm about to engage. And so far I've survived this game for the kings. But in the depths of my mind, I've come to realize I'm breathing to die and I'm dying to breathe. When will the day come that I'm removed from my feet and like all of my opponents, I'm forced to kneel to this king? Whenever it does, I won't bear remorse in my eyes. There'll only be hate for my captors and hope for revenge in a spiritual life. I bear no resemblance to any fighter you've ever seen. I've been built like stone from within. My courage is of a lion. I possess the speed of a cheetah. And in the darkest shadows of the night, I'll shine like armor when the morning dawn casts its light. I am the most powerful gladiator this world has ever seen. When the dust starts to rise and these spectators cheer, I'll swing my maze above my head. Swords will be as sharp as they can possibly be. Spears will be set ready to throw. War will be shared the moment the king stands and says, gladiators, go. You know. Now, that was one of those moments where the information just flows through your head.
Yes.
Yeah. I got 3 of them with those moments, so I'm prepared to give them to you.
Ricky, do you remember, you did a piece, just go, I'm not even gonna worry
No,
about it.
what is it?
No,
No,
remember
talk.
that one piece you published maybe about 2 months ago in your
Oh, my Facebook?
Yeah,
The Shadow of Death.
now that's when because Ricky and I, you know, we grew up together, Ms. Parker, from children, from elementary school, and then, you know, life goes on, but my point is that's what
That's one of the ones.
Yes.
And so The Shadow of Death is based on addiction. And so that's my pet peeve, you know. You want that one, let's
Yep,
do that
I
one.
need that. I know her.
This Shadow of Death has darkened my path. He's a predator of my kind. He'll hunt me all my life. His weapons are temptation and the lure of a good time, deceptive, deceiving, but what's odd, he's like a mime. No words are exchanged, just message through thought. My mind I cannot blame because that shadow is so strange. It's no bone wrapped in flesh, no hands, no chest, no features of any human, but yet he exists. His presence is chilling. I smell fear when he's near. There's an ice cold wind and his thoughts become so clear. It's curious, it's a craving that lumps up in my throat. Then liquid lines my mouth and that shadow points toward dope. Off in that direction, quivering near death, I pause for just 1 second. For 20 years he's chased me and not once did he speak. But with this defiance I'm displaying, I'll get more than some speech. For once in my life I get a glimpse of his face. Diablo, I thought, and out of curiosity I said, why me? Why me? He said, you're a species that's plagued with an incurable disease. Your destination now is nowhere, and under the influence you shall be. For as long as you allow me, Diablo, to darken your path, you'll wander in nowhere, and I'll constantly laugh. It's cold and twisted, abducted by corrupted living beasts who manipulate those who are easy prey. Calculated and meticulous, observed and mysterious predators, they mingle amongst us, causing heartaches and hurt. Lost lives go from ashes to dirt. Will heaven receive them, or did hell mislead them? Those that don't decease shall deteriorate into empty shells of flesh and will surely breathe their last breath. Minotaurs and demons will welcome them at death door with evil grins, fire-breathing, wicked eyes. And when they speak, lost souls will escape from that gaping hole in their face. What's little left of their thoughts will drift them back to memories of an earthly place. It once was considered a cold world, but by no means would it hold a candle to his place. Welcome to hell, fellas.
Yikes, radio. Right? Okay. It's like, whoa. And that was one of those flows
That was one of those flows.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, we come from a ghetto.
Yeah.
And so, how fitting is it to write? See, I love to write about things that I know about.
That's right.
Things that I live, things that I experience. I don't take other people's stories and incorporate them into my language. I take what's on the inside and produce what's there. You know, so I thought, well, I come from the ghetto. I better write something about the ghetto. So I wrote, Welcome to My Ghetto. And it just flowed. This I wrote in 15 minutes. I was grabbing the information, like you said, because it's a masterpiece,
Right.
just
coming
rolling.
to you,
And
yeah.
if you don't grab it, it's gone, you know. Welcome to my ghetto. My streets are paved with thugs and death mysteries, drug addicts, dope fiends, and miscellaneous crime scenes. Familiar cries and screams from these local mothers, and yeah, dying dreams be forced on others. All hope flee from desperate lives like these. They futures looking thick with prison pigs. Homes close to freezing because of no electric heating. We got children with teary eyes and hunger pains, and these county recipient mothers are going insane. On every corner, it's open doors to liquor stores, and it's broken glass in every lot. It's piss-drenched alleys on every block. It's winos with the stench of gin. Is this reality setting in? It's crooked cops cruising these streets. They beat my blacks with their Billy Jacks, and they taking cash, and later they laughing with old friends saying, yeah, Bob, tomorrow we can do this again. Yeah, that's the life I've been forced to live. And I've been doing this since I was a snotty-nosed kid. It's people sleeping in dirty streets using newspapers for sheets, cardboard boxes, substitute houses. Kids, they playing vacant cars. They run them up. Pops is broke with no luck. He's on parole. His future hopes been crushed from prison jolts. He missed important times in his child's life, but the world expect him to have motivated strides. See, through all this torturous misery, my ghetto outlives its history. My people grow in spirit. We feel God's love, and we acknowledge His presence. My folks keep on living. Yeah, that's my ghetto. Smelly, destructive, and unforgettable rodents and cats use rubbers laid loose on sex-stained covers. Misguided young youths, they freshly recover from violent attacks. But I'm not ashamed, you see, because that's my home. So to the world, you tell your friends, you be welcome to my ghetto.
I like that. I like that a lot. Of course I like that a lot. And when Henry was reciting, I went to what we were speaking about earlier, about growing up in Compton and just that kind of era. Remember when you talked about the atmosphere, we talked a little bit about it when Henry was talking about the streets that played with thugs and this look and that. What did that take you, Henry?
Just growing up, man. It's you can go through Compton now. I mean, you can still get that static if you're looking for it, but in the 90s it was completely different. And being a child in Compton, having to just get used to things that we had to get used to. You know, kids in other neighborhoods would never have to deal with those type of things. But just seeing that we just know instinctively, just growing up, you know what I mean? So it's like, I guess it's a blessing and a curse. But Compton was definitely, that took me back to childhood for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But are your memories good? Because I
Absolutely.
have amazing memories of being a kid, and I don't know. I mean, well, I'll put it this way: when I was a little kid, I didn't know it was a ghetto. Did you know? What did you know?
It was
Where
great.
did
It
you
was,
go?
I mean, because you grew up full of love, full of people, you know.
Yeah.
And growing up, when we grew up, it was all, and no shade to our Mexican brothers and sisters, but when I grew up, it was all black in Compton.
Yeah.
So it was a different kind of family vibe in Compton. It was different. So
And I grew up, it was all black and Watts.
Okay.
It was
Yes.
grits and bacon
See,
every Saturday.
Frankie with the hard rinds, you crunch on it.
I think when you have those good memories, the common bond is that we have the essential thing, and the essential thing is love. And what that looked like like was our parents shielding the brunt of reality of not having enough. And therefore, we didn't see it. Go outside and play
Yeah.
with your friends.
Until the street lights come on.
Right.
It-
There's no call, you just know, we gotta go.
Yeah.
No discussion, you just get your little stuff, go over to
Yeah.
the crib, your mama don't even have to call your name, you just go on in.
Absolutely. And I was listening to the brother talk about being a child of the 90s and still the changes that have happened, but the sense of community that still existed.
Absolutely.
And I think what we're seeing right now out of the tragedy that we talked about at the opening of the set was a return to community. And I think that there's much healing in community. I really appreciate Henry's poetry, his spoken word, that he began to create images. And it's very important to be able to see and to remember that even in desolation, there were still times where we had that sense of having enough. And that there was joy, and that there was laughter, that there was love, and that there was community, and that there was music. And then we can hear a piece that takes us back to that place. Isn't that what makes Frankie Beverly and Maze so successful?
Absolutely.
Why they can still pull a room full now? Not because they made anything new, but because their music is the backdrop
Right,
of our lives
yeah.
when things were good.
Absolutely. Do you think we'll be able to get new memories like that?
I think that they're made constantly.
Yeah. On a continuum,
Absolutely.
Absolutely, I agree.
There will always be witnesses to God's power
Yeah.
in the earth realm, in every generation.
In each and every generation.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me your opinion on the word redemption, Ms. Parker.
Paid in full. Paid in full.
Emmett, word redemption.
For me right now, redemptions,
Yes.
well, this is where I'm at with my head. I hear reparations when you say redemption.
Okay, all right.
And I don't know if that's gonna come to pass, you know.
But that's what you're feeling.
This is what's on the tip of my tongue right now. But you know, I'm not expecting to see that in America, but you know, that's what I
Right, that's a good thing.
I'm with both of them.
Repeat yours again, Ms. Parker.
I said paid in full. Of course, you know, I was thinking about the liberty that's been extended to each and every one of us, that the Christ has redeemed us,
That's what I was gonna
that we've been redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. Now, he did bring up reparations.
Let's do it.
Well, I don't know that America will pay the price of redemption for the people called African Americans, the displaced Africans, the Africans in this part of the diaspora who've been denied access, privilege, rights, and yet God has still given us authority with his power.
I'm thinking of the scripture, those who were first will be last, and those who are last will be first. What do you think of that scripture?
Well, on a political standpoint, I'm thinking that there's a change that's happening, but we would have to really ask, who's he talking to? Who is the last and who was the first? I believe that we were the first people, so does that mean we're to be last?
Yeah, right.
You know, a lot of times, I've heard that a lot,
Yeah.
you know, and in our society, we witness that happen. I remember early on in life when I was younger, we would see people who was living their best life. And I don't know if it's designated to that part of life, but then you would see people who was living their worst life. And as time has traveled and as time has went on, I started to see the first come last and the last come first. And I don't know if that's what it meant, but I always wondered and I always thought, wow, how amazing is God. And not everyone would fall off. And I think that has to do with their purity and their commitment and the truth, the light in them. That their success wasn't built on, like you said earlier, about humbling yourself. It's important to stay humble. It's important to exercise humility, because you know, when you're treading in spiritual circles, you have to be accountable for who you are and how you carry yourself, especially if you've been chosen to carry a message. You really do. And if you don't, you pay spiritual prices. You know, I've seen this. I remember a lot of the things that I did when I was younger weren't the smartest things in the world. I would started off matching toughness with toughness, but I remember having to pay for those things. And I remember when I was walking in it, I would always talk to God, and I talked to God, and I said, "You're punishing me, aren't you?" And I said, "I understand. I'm just gonna walk through this punishment, and I'm not gonna complain, and I'm gonna hold my head up, and I'm just gonna accept it." And I think when you start doing that, I think this is how He picked and chose me to start working, because, you know, my relationship with Him has been in existence since I was a kid, based on the family I come from. And somebody brought it to my attention. They said, "You believe in God more than you know." And I said, "Wow, why do you say that?" He said, "Because I remember you telling me about when you were a kid and you came home from school and about 5 or 6 kids ran up on you and they took your umbrella. And then when they took your umbrella, it pissed you off and made you mad. But then what even made you worse is when it rained, you were so angry that you were mad at God. And your statement was that, how did you let them take my umbrella? And then you make it rain on me. What is this? You know? And so if you don't believe in something, you don't
Blame it.
blame it. You know?
We have to stay connected to the source. I think Emma's flagging us. We have about 4 minutes, but I think I'm gonna just give my little commentary wrap up, and then I'd like to go around the platform. What I feel from tonight's show is a lot of love and a lot of energy in terms of gateway is what's coming to my mind. There's a lot more work to be done, and a lot more work that the Poetry of Justice show will be doing. When you talked about that fall off, or remember we talked the A or the B or falling off, I'm kind of thinking about the film Thelma and Louise when they're at the end of the film and it's
Yeah.
right? And when you were saying earlier about you could turn around and look back, or you can just whoop, whoop, right?
The leap or the jump.
Bingo, right? I wanna do the strategic, and wherever I land, that's where we land, right? But I'm ready. And your presence in the studio has confirmed that, right? We talked about that confirmation, because we'll be going to 2-hour segments starting May.
All right.
And I've been grappling with that, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna have enough content? But I know He's gonna make it happen for me.
Absolutely.
Because everything we talked about in the studio tonight has confirmed that, and things that I didn't even share that was in my spirit that was up in here kinda, He brought you in, He brought in the words of wisdom. So 3 wise individuals. We're gonna have an amazing time. Thank you for your time coming on the show tonight, Ms. Parker. If you could give some parting words, and then Ricky, I'd appreciate it.
You know, what I'd like to leave your audience with is the fact that the time is now. The most important time is now. And when we were talking about that last piece, the first shall be last, well, you can assign it to any era that you want to, but really the word is a living word, and so it applies to us who hear it now. And so what is God doing in your life now?
Mhm.
I want to tell you that assignment is
Mhm.
now.
Yeah. Basically, there's a powerful energy out here and it's moving.
Hmm.
And a lot of people aren't aware, they aren't awake, but there's a lot of us are. And we just have to convince them that what's, everybody's been talking about from the beginning all the way to now, it's happening. Spiritual circles are coming together, and there's some things going on in this world that you just can't explain, and it's gonna make its way. You either gonna be a part of it. I have no idea or no clue where you fall if you don't be a part of it, but I'm sure we have a loving God. He's not just gonna throw you to the wolves. I don't ever wanna tell anybody that.
In Lake of Fire, I'm cool. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us here tonight on the
Thank
Poetry
you.
of Justice Show with Jackie Ray Phillips on YikesRadio.com.
All right.
Bless you. Thank you. It's always wake up.